It's time for Branding Business, the only show that brings branding experts and corporate executives together to explore how branding your business can improve both your top-line growth and bottom-line performance. Brought to you by Rieches Baird. And now here's your host.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ryan Rieches of Rieches Baird, and welcome to Branding Business. Today our topic is branding early-stage companies, and our first guest is Casper Zublin. I met Casper a number of years ago through YPO, and over the last few years, he's sold a business, become CEO of a publicly traded company, and has launched a new startup. So, Casper, you certainly have a number of different business experiences that our listeners would love to hear. Maybe you can give me a quick overview of your background, and that'll kind of set the stage for our discussion today.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. My background, I'd say, is a bit varied. I've been in several different industries, everything from systems integration and enterprise software to insurance and the staffing industry. From a role perspective, been chief executive, and I've also been founder and entrepreneur, so I've been on both sides of that table.
Well, specifically around the topic of an entrepreneur, you have started businesses and then sold them. So how do you go about the process of identifying new business opportunities?
That's a great question. That's like the $1 million question, isn't it?
Of course.
All I can really share is just my experience with it. And it was, I was in the midst of doing something else. I was in the midst of building a real estate business. And a problem arose. And I was really quite vexed by this problem, and I said, there's got to be a better solution to this. So I kind of crafted a one-off solution, and at the end of it, everyone looked around the table and said, that's really clever. And I remember going home thinking, there's probably a market for that. And unfortunately, maybe fortunately, we'll find out here, it took about 12 years to act on that insight, but it was just a problem that was in the course of doing something else.
So it begins with just identifying a need and then doing a little research to see if that opportunity can actually present itself to a much bigger audience. So tell me about your most recent business concept, Asterisk Financial. How did you identify that specific need?
I think I was just referring to that in the last question. But, we were in a real estate deal, and we got down to get the loan, and it was a $5 million loan. And there was 4 of us in the deal. And we all had to sign what was known as a joint and several personal guarantee. And I did not understand what joint and several meant, so I asked the attorneys, and they said each of us was on the hook for 100% of the debt should the business fail. And I thought to myself, being on the hook for 100% of $5 million wasn't my idea of fun. But I started thinking about it a little deeper, and there was another member of the partnership, and he was worth a great deal of money. And I thought, if they're going to go after anybody, they're probably going to go after him first. So I ended up talking to him about basically trading some of my equity in the deal for him telling the bank to let me off of the personal guarantee. So I basically figured out a little risk arbitrage. And so I gave up a little bit of my upside to get rid of 100% of my downside. And so it's what I mentioned a moment ago. I wasn't sitting in a room kind of by myself looking at markets and reading the Internet. I was in the middle of solving one business problem, actually trying to move forward one business when this problem occurred. And it struck me that, there's probably a market for this. And that's how the genesis for what Asterisk Financial became, which was personal guarantee insurance. It came from that situation.
So basically this idea of transferring personal risk obviously worked for you. And so how did you go about evaluating whether it would work for other entrepreneurs or business owners, or was there demand for this concept? How did you go about evaluating the marketplace?
Well, that was a much longer process. I think, was it Edison who says it's 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration, something like that? I like to tell people it takes about 30 seconds for me to kind of say, hey, there should be this thing called personal guarantee insurance. That was the easy part of the whole project. Next step is you're asking, how did you figure out was there demand? Well, we started with just talking to other business owners. So I actually sat down with probably between 100 to 200 business owners with personal guarantees, and I interviewed them. I just spent a lot of time talking to people and said, well, what do you do about it? If you had a product, would you do something about getting rid of that risk? Does it keep you up at night? And so we started off with kind of this, I'd say kind of an intense focus on the market with people that would probably be the buyers of it. And then we moved from a more, I'm not quite sure what you'd call that in marketing terms, I'd say almost grassroots kind of effort, into a more formalized market research effort. And, both of those, we learned a lot from both the more formalized market research effort as well as this talking to lots of end users. And then there were also the banks, right? So we had to talk to a bunch of banks. So we formed a community bank council. We had CEOs of several community banks advise us and tell us their thoughts on it. We did the same thing with attorneys and all the other influencers, insurance brokers and CPAs. So there was just a lot of conversations to have to kind of sort through, was there demand, was there support, how would the product have to be crafted. It was one of those things that, again, I think it was that 1% took about a minute to think of the idea, and then it took years of effort and manpower to kind of craft it into a product that would be suitable for a market. And that meant we were asking lots and lots of questions.
So you started by asking these questions yourself and really talking to other business owners as well as influencers. And then eventually you evaluated the prospect of reaching out to potential business owners as buyers, right?
That's correct.
How did you go about that process of selecting a research firm or a rating firm or an ad agency to help you throughout that scope of work?
Sure. Well, Ryan, this is where having friends in high places really pays off. And the friend I'm thinking of was yourself. Has anyone ever told you you occupied a high place in life?
Only you, Casper.
Only me. Well, your firm is a well-known firm, and I had a chance in a previous reincarnation of my career to use your firm, and so I actually went asking for help. And it wasn't just you. I asked for help. I asked a lot of people in this area for help, and we sat down with a lot of different smart people and did a lot of vetting. And we ended up you ended up bringing a resource to a table. So the Rieches Baird firm brought a firm by the name of Socratic Technologies to the table, who had pioneered some use of the internet for some very quantitative survey results. And we ended up creating I guess I think of it as a cartoon video that really demonstrates the product without any selling, that we then were able to show people what it was and then survey them in a very objective manner and get some very quantitative results on top of all of the I guess qualitative results that we had done from our actual belly-to-belly conversations. And those results yielded some very interesting insights that the belly-to-belly conversations had not yielded. And so we felt like we really were beginning to get an understanding of the market, the demand, potential pricing. These were all questions that when it's a brand new product, it's truly a blue ocean product. You don't have, everyone wants to have a blue ocean product, but when you have a blue ocean product, there is nothing to go by. There's no plagiarism allowed because no one's walked the ground before you. So that you need a lot of counselors around you that understand that, and can add both the quantitative aspect as well as the qualitative aspect to help you sort through how to bring that product to market, how to price it, how to organize it, how to message it, all of those things. It became a huge endeavor, probably an endeavor we spent close to a year of work on.
Just curious, of course the research came back and validated that there was a need for, but what would you have done if the research would have said, there really isn't a need for this product?
Well, we would have probably stopped spending money. I think that would be the answer. one of my favorite business executives has this line about third-party vets. And pretty much any important decision in the business that he runs, he conducts a third-party vet. Mm-hmm. And what you're looking for is not consistent information. You're looking for inconsistent, non-conforming data. So if all the belly-to-belly told us there was a market and the quantitative said there wasn't a market, you get some pretty powerful non-conforming data to your hypothesis. And, non-conforming data, frankly, is the most valuable. It's the data that can save you money or make you a lot of money. So, frankly, the data had been non-conforming, we probably would have focused even more intently on it, and that decision may have led to either adjusting our plans or, not moving forward with the product at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know certain adjustments were made after that research came back, but in this case, the business concept was validated and that there was a perceived need and a good business model could be built around it. So I'm just curious, there were probably a lot of thoughts going through your mind at that time. Do you, focus on hiring your team, start raising money, or do you really, how do you think about the brand? Is that something that was important to you at that stage, that you need to figure out the brand's promise first before raising money and hiring your team? Or, because most people, I think often, I should say, think about how they're going to go to market and start raising that money and so forth. But give me a little feedback on what went through your mind and how you approached it.
Well, the answer to all great questions in this life is it depends.
Of course.
Of course, right? And, the answer of whether, you should focus on brand or, the management team or the go-to-market, when you're in an early stage, the question of what's next is always a question that is hotly debated and rarely obvious, the answer. What I tell you is, in this particular case, we decided that brand was ultimately very important. It was a blue ocean product. We thought the market was a multi-billion-dollar market opportunity. We felt that there was indeed that as soon as we started getting traction in the market, that we would see competitors within 1 to 2 years. We felt that having a strong brand identity was going to help us not only with on the internet side of the world, but with the really claiming the first position in the market. So in our particular case, because we thought it was a big idea, big market opportunity, we decided that brand, in fact, was an important next step. So we started working directly with the Rieches Baird team, and I think there was half a dozen members of the Rieches Baird team that we worked with, each filling a very valuable role for us, helping us think through everything from the name to the visual identity to vision and purpose and mission and all of those things that add much clarity to the core message and then self-reinforcing. Because we felt we had a big idea. I'm not sure if we would have gone down that path had the idea been a small idea. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it felt like it was very much appropriate that, and I think one of the board members asked a great question at a board meeting, and I think it's relevant to this conversation. I very much recall him asking this question. He stopped and he said, how do you treat a $100 million idea? With what care and attention and love and effort do you treat a $100 million idea versus $1 million idea or a $10 idea?
Great question.
And we all felt this was a $100 million idea, and so that frame of reference really drove how we did everything with the project, frankly. From the management team to the branding to the research, everything we did, we actually said, we've got a very valuable idea. How do we treat that, something that has such value?
So in your case, you obviously took a look at the brand first. So that could probably vary. Maybe other startups might not approach it in that manner. But how did you use the brand then to benefit you in the process of raising capital or hiring the executives or finding the right business partners?
Well, that's a big question. Let's start with the raising the capital and then, go on to business partners and perhaps, employees and others. on the raising capital side, the process of creating a brand is a process of distillation really it's a distillation process. And the distillation results in both a verbal and visual ability to communicate what it is you are and what it is you're doing in very few words and very succinct imagery. Okay? That's the net result of a good brand. It stands for something. It's imbued with meaning, and it has inherent meaning. Asterisk Financial is because if you have a personal guarantee, there's an asterisk in your life, period. It's a very subtle way to remind people that, in fact, that's what it is. A personal guarantee is an omission of risk. An asterisk is an omission of thought. When we go to raise capital and we have the ability to articulate that in a meaningful, powerful, simple, and direct manner, people with money respond. When you say something and it's complex, and as I like to say, it's wordy and verbose, right? You don't raise money. Complexity rarely raises money. It's a simple, direct concept, idea that people identify with in the first 30 seconds, and then they're verifying everything else from that first initial thought. So the brand process really, I think in my mind, has a very tangible effect on the capital raise process. But it's not the brochure that the brand produces. It's the distillation of the articulation and of the imagery that supports that articulation of what it is you're all about. On the management side it helps when you can convey to the management team that you're trying to build what it is you're all about, and they identify with that. It's one of my thoughts that I've had and I've seen in a lot of businesses is, the man that puts a stake in the ground causes the world to revolve around it. Branding helps you place a stake in the ground. And whether it's raising capital or attracting the right management team members or the right employees later on, it's that stake in the ground that you're asking the world to revolve around your worldview. And I think branding has got an important element to say about that particular activity.
How about the business partners? How important was the brand clarity for like an insurance carrier to be aligned with you?
Yeah, good point there. We had to take a brand new insurance product and convince an regulated insurance company with an A rating and a multi-billion-dollar balance sheet to bet their balance sheet on this concept. Our ability to kind of show who we were, and I think the management team from their perspective was probably the most important element. But I think second was our processes and our ability to identify and say, this is who we are and this is what we stand for and this is our product. And it was a complete package. If an element of that package was missing, I think it would severely have reduced our chances of landing our insurance company or, frankly, any other of our business partners, because we have many. So I think it had a role to play there of making a complete package.
Well, you mentioned a moment ago that you were able to put a stake in the ground. So you had a unique opportunity to create a category of a business model that didn't exist before. So give us a little bit of an overview of how you went about protecting that category and your thought process of owning that category so that others can't eventually, also make their own claims.
Right. It's probably one of the few times in my career we had the opportunity to be part of creating a brand new category and then, obviously looking to become number one in that category. So, how do I respond to that? Ryan, do me a favor. State the question again, because I've got like 3 different answers in my head, and I don't want to mislead your listeners here. So would you help me out?
Well, I was just thinking of sharing some of the things that you did to claim ownership to that category. I mean, you went out, sure. I know, bought a lot of URLs,
Yep.
personalguarantee.com,
Yep.
for example. And
well, there's the intellectual property side of that, right? So
yeah. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about that, because I think our listeners would be interested in that.
Well, we really worked from all angles of intellectual property. We worked from a patent perspective. We worked from a copyright perspective. We worked from a domain name perspective. We worked from a trademark perspective. We were actually able to gain trademark personal guarantee insurance. So we really took advantage of every way we could create a barrier to entry. And I think sometimes the word barrier to entry and kind of how you protect the brand and is a little bit misleading, because we all think of barrier to entry and we immediately see the moat. We thought about it as kind of layers of defense: razor wire, glass embedded on top of a wall, maybe a moat, but maybe we only had one alligator in the moat versus a bunch of alligators. Okay, few businesses have that deep, wide moat patrolled by 1,000 alligators. Okay, so we were trying to simply add layer upon layer, just making it painful for someone to compete with us. Okay, maybe not impossible, but painful. We also ultimately felt that at the end of the day, personal guarantee insurance was enough unique. There was enough unique differences in the business insurance or the specialty insurance market that, in fact, the brand was going to be extremely valuable in the end as a competitive weapon. That if people thought of Asterisk and personal guarantee insurance in the same breath, and that in fact would be among the more significant of competitive barriers that we could erect. So we did spend a fair amount of time thinking about that.
Well, it seems like you protected it quite well. And I think the name, Asterisk Financial, you spoke a moment ago about this concept of omission of risk. For those of listeners who have not gone through the process of naming a company, it is a very emotional process. Maybe you can give everybody just a little overview of how you approach the process and some of the emotional considerations that went through the minds of yourself and your team.
Oh my gosh, it's like naming your brand new Labrador Retriever. Everyone falls in love with the first name, and there are lots of decisions in business that have lots of emotion. Changing offices has a lot of emotion, but I think naming a product or naming a business carries probably among the most emotion. What I guess my experience would suggest, and any counsel I would probably give, is simply treat each name as a hypothesis. Run it through what you're actually trying to achieve, and don't let the wife of the CEO have input. And it's also not a democracy. I read a book recently called Tuned In, which is about launching a new product. I'd highly recommend it to your readers. I thought it was a great organized process for not only product creation, but product launch. They have this great line in that book about, while your opinion is valued, it's irrelevant. And in the naming thing, a lot of people are going to want to put in their 2 cents worth, and their opinion is probably irrelevant. The professionals should be handling the naming. And unfortunately, what happens in my experience is a lot of times the name gets kicked around for all reasons outside of good business reasons. There are professionals that do naming that keep the emotion at bay, keep focused on the business objective, and I would very much encourage people to approach this rational and level-headed as any business activity that you're trying to achieve something with.
Well, Casper, I really appreciate your point of view on this, and I think you captured it quite well. I think our experience tells us that it isn't a democracy, that the leader of the organization and maybe the core team needs to make the final decision, and other opinions are irrelevant because the name is given meaning over time, and that's what the brand does. So I have just a couple more questions for you, and we'll wrap things up here. So now you have this great executive team in place. What is your role?
Sidekick. For Asterisk Financial, I'm a board member, and I serve as an honorary role as co-founder and inventor of personal guarantee insurance. I have two other co-founders that we never would have got the company launched without Mark Ricciardelli and Andy Graham, and they're also co-founders. I kind of carry the name inventor because it does generally start with one guy sitting at his desk by himself. That was me, but it was only me for about 3 or 4 months. And then my other co-founders joined me, and it took the efforts and talents of 3 different skilled and senior executives to make this happen. And so all of us are really co-founders of the business. So I kind of do some speaking and help the company out, but I'm mainly a board member. It's interesting, though I've been a CEO of lots of companies. I wasn't qualified to be CEO of a company that I actually had the idea to start, and it's because insurance is a regulated industry. It has lots of elements to it that unless you're an industry CEO, you really don't have the background, no matter how successful you may have been in any other industry, to run an insurance company. These are unique animals. They have to be treated that way and with a great deal of respect regarding how they were. So, we brought in a very senior CEO, Mark Ricciardelli, who's also, we consider, co-founder of the business because he was in pretty early. He started working with us, I think, 8th or 9th month from the time that I started sitting looking at the computer screen by myself. So, and he joined us, I believe, about a year into the project. But we had about 4 or 5 months of conversation before he actually joined us. But Mark definitely is one of the co-founders of the business and has contributed an enormous amount. So,
all right. So my last question: whose responsibility is the brand today, then?
Again, because I think brand is important to Asterisk Financial and personal guarantee insurance and creating that market, I think brand is, on a day-to-day basis, owned by our chief marketing officer. I think, though, at the end of the day, if it's a buck stops here, it really is all the way to a board level. There are many conversations with the board about our brand and extending a brand and imbuing the brand because it is such we're creating a new product category. If it was a new product within an existing category, I'm not sure if it would rise to a board level. But this is certainly a CEO board part of our ongoing discussions.
All right. Well, that's a great point of view. Well, Cap, in summary, here's a few takeaways that I picked up today. That in your case, it made sense to start thinking about the brand early as it related to raising capital, hiring the right executives, getting the business partners aligned, and then also in your case, because of the circumstances, it made sense to bring in the executive team and let them take the business forward. So, interesting points of view. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for being a guest on Branding Business. Any final thoughts or insights to share with our listeners?
No, I really appreciate your time. Good questions. Always enjoy sharing my experiences, and they can be valuable to somebody else. That makes it even better. Thank you, Ryan. Okay.
Well, sure. Hey, real quickly, if listeners have questions of you, how would they reach you? Do you have a website, an email, phone number you could share?
Sure. Email is just Casper at CasperZublin.com, and that's the best way for people to contact me. And look forward to be happy to answer any questions or follow-up questions that people may have.
Casper, thanks again for being a guest on Branding Business, and we'll be right back with our next guest.
There's something happening out there today. All across America, we're seeing encouraging signs of economic recovery. Businesses are once again thinking about new growth, and new opportunities are emerging. But it raises the question, is your company positioned to take full advantage of the economic recovery and the opportunities it presents? Maybe it's time to ask, how has the recession impacted your business model? Is your business as relevant as it once was? Should you consider entering new markets or expanding into new categories? And what do customers really value about their relationship with you? The golden thread through all these questions and the answer to each and every one of them can be found in just one place: your brand. It's much deeper than your logo and much bigger than your advertising. Your brand is the enabler of your entire business strategy. Rieches Baird is a brand strategy firm that can help. They specialize in business branding. They've helped hundreds of companies from startups to Fortune 500 leverage their brands to drive growth. They can do the same for yours. It's really quite simple. Find out more, just visit brandingbusiness.com. That's www.brandingbusiness.com. And plant the seed for economic growth.
Well, continuing on this show's theme of branding early-stage companies, our next guest is Garry Green, CEO of Liberty Synergistics and its newest company, Evoke. Now, in full transparency, I've known Garry for a number of years, and our firm, Rieches Baird, actually helped Garry validate the business strategy and define its brand for this new company, Evoke, which is currently being launched. So before we get into the details of this new venture, Garry, maybe you can give us a little background of your role at Liberty Synergistics and this new company?
Sure. My background at Liberty Synergistics, I've been with the company for 10 plus years in various capacities, from sales, marketing, vice president of sales and marketing. And in 2006, the founder asked that I become president and take over the strategy and leadership of the organization. So Liberty Synergistics has been around for 27 plus years and DBAing under the name Liberty Photo Products. Liberty Photo Products is a distribution company of lab support products going into major drug and grocery stores across the nation, as well as here locally, to support the photo labs. And we realized that because of some of the trends and some of the opportunities that present themselves in the market, that there was a need to augment the business with some manufacturing capabilities, and I'd be happy to talk more about that.
Well, along that same line there, a number of factors are forcing many businesses to reinvent themselves to consistently remain relevant. And you were kind of alluding to the fact that your industry is requiring you to do that. Did you consider changing the parent company, or was the focus initially just to continue with this thought of a spin-off such as Evoke?
Well, Liberty Photo Products is a thriving entity. It's a distribution company with a lot of brand equity, and we're very well known within the photo imaging channel. But there are some outlanding opportunities that are very, very close to the current business that have a much bigger market for us. And the idea was to, really leverage the current business and branding and then augment. And we weren't, at the time that we first started talking with Rieches Baird, we weren't sure if we needed a new brand. So that was actually part of the process in developing the new opportunity for us.
Well, how did you go about the process of selecting a firm? And you probably could have gone with research firms or business consultants or branding firms or a variety of different companies to help you. I'm curious, because I never asked you this. How did you go about the process of selecting a firm?
Sure. Well, for us, I am part of. I've known you, Ryan, for many years, and I've always felt comfortable working with you in our discussions. And I think you have to be comfortable with whoever you're talking to. They have to be able to sort of get it, even get the stuff that you may not be saying. And sorry, hold on. My cell phone was ringing. Want to start with that one over?
I would say just ask the question again, and I'll try and piece it together. So just count to 2 and then start. Okay.
1, 2. So Garry, I'm just curious. Never asked you this question before. How did you go about the process of selecting a strategic partner to help you with this new endeavor? Did you look at business consultants or research firms or branding firms or ad agencies? What went through your mind, and how did you go about this process?
Sure. Well, I'm a part of a network, YPO, and I know you are as well. and being able to talk with other presidents that have gone through the process. You have a great reputation, and after meeting you several times with respect to this project, certainly felt comfortable with you and describing really the state of Liberty Synergistics and some of the challenges that we face and some of the opportunities that we're looking at, and just making sure that you're a company that we can work with, that you get it, that you can help us. Number one, help us validate our strategy, but then two, help us get there. And I think it's really important to address some of those fundamental issues at the outset.
Well, good. Thanks for that feedback. I appreciate it. And it is people, working with people, and you have to feel comfortable and confident that you're getting the right type of team in place. So I appreciate that feedback. So let's talk more specifically about your new venture, Evoke. How did you identify this new business concept and the need for this opportunity in the marketplace? Sure.
Well, specifically, I'll talk a little bit about Liberty Photo Products. We supply, as I said, we supply these major drug and grocery stores with their lab support products, and some of the products are actually supporting the Evoke brand. They could be a substrate or a blank product that then get manufactured later on to the value chain. And we were always finding that in the current business, it's very it needs some rejuvenation. And so in some of our discussions with one of the major retailers about where we saw the future of printing and the photo channel, eventually they said, well, why don't you start making these products for us? And so we've always been one to be on the pulse of our customers' needs, and we kind of sat back and we evaluated the market as a whole, and then really decided, hey, is this a market that we should target, and how big is the market, and could we make it better and bigger and faster and all the other things? So we sat back, and if you look at the photo gifting channel, it's about a $1.2 billion market. But if you only look at the photo gifting and you don't realize that you're basically, there's these peripheral or outside markets, whether it's apparel or home decor, you can take that $1.2 billion market and open it up to be, we've yet to identify exactly how big the market. But even stationery, for example, I think stationery is between a $12 and $14 billion market. We have to capture a very small percent and make that stationery, those greeting cards, personalized, and now you're talking about a nice business. So leveraging the existing customer base and then building on that, I think has been vital to our strategy.
Well, maybe we can dig a little bit deeper on that. So for our listeners' benefit, how did the brand strategy process help you define the market opportunity and really identify the sweet spot in the market for this new venture?
Sure. Well, when we hired Rieches Baird, it was really important for us in our discussions with Rieches Baird to help us validate some of our assumptions, and we wanted to make sure that one, there was a market there for us, and then two, how do we brand the new company? One, does it need to be a new name, and two, what does it need to look like going forward? So Rieches Baird engaged in internal interviews and external interviews with vendors, customers, and in some cases competitors that had no problem sharing what their view of Liberty, their view of the market, and even helping validate some of our strategy. And that was first and foremost.
All right. So throughout that process, where do you think you got the greatest benefit?
Well, there's a risk in just assuming that you understand what your customers think of you, and I think the greatest benefit was, number one, identifying where your strengths are. I mean, truly identifying where your strengths are, and having an outside firm do that for you. It's amazing what customers and in our case, even some competitors, how open they were with a third party like Rieches Baird. And then two, how can you build on your current brand to really augment and make sure that you're relevant in the new endeavor. And in our case, in the new what we were calling NewCo and what we now call Evoke.
Gary, I think you're right.
To say that
we have found as well that your audience, your target market, your customers, et cetera, will tell a third party a lot more information than they always will the client at the same time.
That's right.
So maybe you can also give our listeners your point of view of, when should a startup begin thinking about and clarifying their brand? Because there's a lot of different schools of thought around this. Any tips or guidance?
Yeah, I really think that you want to clarify your brand. It's tied into your strategy. So they all kind of run together. You develop first. You want to make sure that you've got a business there. But even as you develop your brand, that's part of validating your initial beliefs and your initial strategy. 2, you don't want false starts, and so part of that branding process is to validate those assumptions, and come out of the gates with a clear understanding about who you are and how you want to communicate to the stakeholders, including those within your organization. They have to be very clear on that. If all systems are operating together at the beginning, I think that you're going to minimize any false starts.
Oh, good feedback. So you spoke about this earlier on, but as a legacy B2B company, early on you decided to align yourself with other business partners, and sometimes startups can be viewed risky by these partners throughout the supply chain. So what was the role of the parent company, Liberty Synergistics, in really providing credibility for this new startup?
Right. Well, Liberty Synergistics, we've been in business for 27 years, and we've successfully served some of the top major brands in the country, including Kodak, Walgreens, CVS, Costco, many of the regional drug and grocery stores. And we have 8,000 different products in our lineup. We have distribution points in multiple locations in the country, and there's a great heritage and a great story there. And I think the idea is you want to pull out the aspects of that story that transfer in your future, and make sure that they remain, evident in the new brand. As well as you go through this process, you realize that there may be some, strengths in the organization that you can actually build on and really augment. It's really about telling a story, and even when you're talking to a potential investor or somebody that's important to your supply chain, they want to know about that story. And so when they see a new brand or they see a 27-year history of successfully serving these major brands, they want to be a part of it.
Yeah, so you were able to leverage that and utilize it in telling the more complete story, the strength and credibility of the parent company, and then the opportunity ahead of it. So then, in turn, the brand really helped you in the areas of possibly finding the right business partners or hiring the right executives. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you're a startup, you're basically you're telling a story about what can be or what could be. And while it's possible to do that, people do it all the time. When you can refer back to actual experience, what we've done in the past, how we've been able to reinvent or overcome challenges, that's who we are. It's in our DNA. And whether it's an older part of our business or a newer part of the business, those fundamentals transfer. And I think that, as we tell the story of our past and we talk about the future, they all transfer and they add credibility to the story. That goes for, obviously if you're bringing in a key executive or you're talking to a key supplier and you're wanting to be treated as if you're already in the business, telling the story is really important. And then having them buy into that story and understanding it completely, and identifying where this is where we were and this is where we're going, and you can see how they're all linked together. it's important. And I know, after hiring some key executives in the organization, you can see their eyes light up. Even those candidates that didn't make it on board, there's a certain amount of excitement that you see in people's eyes when they get it, when they understand the story.
Yeah, so you were able to utilize that story with your business partners, with hiring the right people, as well as telling the story internally to your existing team. So
absolutely,
well done. So you're in the process of officially launching this new company. Any advice to give others who are in the process of starting a new business?
Well, yeah. I think that one, you want to validate all your assumptions with as many stakeholders as possible. If you have to leverage an outside firm to help you do that, I think that's really important. We often operate in silos, and getting as many, talking to as many people, customers, prospective customers, vendors, even outside firms like Rieches Baird, I think is extremely important. The other is that, strategy, we think of you write a business plan and it's baked and then you execute. And that's all really, that's all true. But it's important that there remains a certain amount of flexibility and understanding that strategy is also an iterative process. And that goes whether you're a startup or you've been in business for 27 years, your strategy is always evolving. And I think it's important that you remain flexible and you listen to those around you, because even after all the validation you go through, it's still an ongoing process. And at the pace of business today, what you think holds true, even 2 months ago may not hold true today.
I think that is fantastic advice. And Garry, I'd definitely like to have you back as a guest in about a year or so to see the progress you've made, and I'm sure you'll be able to share a lot of different advice to others on your experience over that time.
Yes, would love to do that.
Perfect. So I always like to ask this question: who in your organization is responsible for the brand? Is it the CEO, or is it a marketing exec, or is it someone else?
Sure. I would say it's me. I would say it's ultimately it's my responsibility, and certainly you collaborate, you sincerely collaborate with your marketing, and I would say you collaborate with all leadership, because once that strategy gets defined, you want to make sure that everyone in the organization fully understands the brand, its personality, and where you're taking it.
Well, Garry, you've given our listeners a lot of great insights. A few that I'd like to just comment on. You spoke of validating assumptions and getting insights from the marketplace. I think that's very valuable. And you also spoke about having a strategy, but be flexible as this strategy evolves. And in order to accomplish that, you have to listen to your audience and find out where the brand and the strategy can go. So I think those are tremendous benefits to pass on. So, Garry, thank you for being a guest on Branding Business. Any final thoughts or insights to share with our listeners?
No, I think that it's a fun process, and I think it's an important process. And for any of those that have questions or want to get some insight, I'm welcome to reach out and offer up any of my experiences I can.
Okay, very good. Well, hey, if listeners want to get a hold of you, have any other questions, how would they reach you? Could you give us your either website or any way?
Sure, I'll give my email address. It's ggreen@libertysynergistics.com.
Okay. And what about the Evoke? You're launching the brand, but we're going to have these as archives, so people could visit the website in the future.
Certainly, that is launching here any day, and that is www.evokenow.com. That's IVOKE now.com.
Perfect, Garry. Thank you. And for our listeners, you've been listening to Branding Business with Rieches Baird. To learn more about the show, please visit brandingbusiness.com. Thank you.
You've been listening to Branding Business, the only show that brings branding experts and corporate executives together to explore how branding your business can improve both your top-line growth and bottom-line performance. To hear more, simply visit our website, brandingbusiness.com, or tune in next week to learn how you too can build your brand and move your business forward. Brought to you by Rieches Baird.